Hey, welcome back to the series, and we have seen how to set up PostgreSQL and pgadmin tool on our local machines in the previous episode. In this episode, we are going to set up the front end and back end, and we will get started with the development. So first of all, we need Angular CLI to be installed on our local machine as a prerequisite. So with Angular CLI, what we need to do is we just need to run one command. It will create the whole skeleton for you. So, and when it comes to the API, we are using Nodejs and ExpressJS web framework, where we have to do everything manually, and we will see how to do that manually. So with npm init, you can create a whole npm project, and you can install ExpressJS, and after installing ExpressJS, you can create HTTP server. We will see all that stuff next. So let's get started. Okay, first thing what we need to do is let's create a folder called, since it's a PEAN stack, let's create a folder called PEAN stack example. Once done, let's import into VSCode. Since we are building full stack web applications, let's create two folders, one for UI and another for API. So let's open the terminal and let's create two folders. So I'm going to create UI, and also I'm going to create API folder. Okay, now we have created two folders. Let's get into API folder, change the directory, and the first thing what we need to do is, since it's npm project, we have seen how to install Node.js already in the first episode. So with npm init, you can create package.json, and when you do npm init, it will ask you a bunch of questions. Let's answer all these questions, and finally when you hit enter, it will create package.json. So let's look at these questions basically. So it's a package name, version, description, entry point, so test command, git repository. Those are all optional. You can give names, or you can just take default ones. Let's hit yes. Once you hit yes, it creates package.json, and if you just open API folder, you can see package.json. So all the answers that is given, you can see on the package.json as well. Now let's create index.js, where you actually write the code, Node.js code. So for testing purpose, let's create one function, and let's test it out. So I'm just in the first line, I'm just printing some statement, example line I'm printing here. So you can put anything, and I'm going to create one function as well. It's an addition, which takes two parameters, and it returns the addition of those two parameters. Finally, we are printing that particular addition. What is the output of that particular function? So now when I run this file, you can run in two ways. You can just run node index.js, or you can just put this in npm scripts, and you can do npm start. So when I run in node index.js, you can see example line and also the addition. So it is working fine, and let's add this to npm scripts so that you don't have to remember every time what is the file name and all. All you need to do is you need to hit npm start. It just runs whatever the command that you give in that particular npm script. So there are two ways. You can just run it with node index.js, or you can just add that to the npm script section and do npm start. It in turn runs node index.js and prints, execute that full index.js file. Now let's get into, so we are done with API, we have tested it, and let's get into UI. So change the directory, and here is the Angular CLI page. Copy that command and install globally. So you have to install Angular CLI globally so that you can use ng command wherever you want. Okay, we have done installation of Angular CLI. Once that is done, this is how you create the first project. Since we have already created UI folder, let's create the ng project with ng new. You just need to give that project name UI. So it asks whether there are some questions where you can answer yes or no. It's optional. So once you hit yes, it's basically create the whole skeleton for you. It may take some time. Let's give it maybe a minute. Okay, now it created successfully. If you open UI, you can see bunch of files like angular.json, package.json. There are a lot of files. We can just go through one by one in detail in the next episodes, but all you need to know is you have a component and you have a module, and we have package.json where you put all your dependencies and npm scripts. So if you see, when you run npm start, it runs ng-serve, and ng-serve will in turn run the whole Angular project for you. Now it is compiled successfully and it is running on port 4200. Let's copy that line and hit it in the browser. When you hit it in the browser, you can actually see the whole thing. It's an example component. So if you just go back and see app component, you can actually see the whole HTML there. So now we are done with the UI, and let's go to API and let's set it up Express server. So the first thing what we need to do is we just need to create another terminal and change the directory to API. Once we change the directory to API, first thing what we need to do is, since we are using Express, so we have to install Express. So once you run this command, this Express will get added to the dependencies object, and also it creates node modules, and it puts all the dependencies under node modules folder. And after that, let's go to hello world example of Express and copy the first 3 lines where we are importing, the first line is we need to import the Express, and then we need to assign that Express to some variable, and we are defining a port as well. So we are running this whole Express server on port 3000. After that, the Express has some methods. The get method is a default HTTP get method where it takes a path as a first parameter and a function as a second parameter, and in that function will take 2 parameters, which is request and response. So for the response, we are sending a simple heading that API works. After that, there is a listen method where you are actually creating a HTTP server on port 3000 or 3080. The second parameter is a optional, and it takes a function. So what we are doing here is we are just printing a statement where exactly the Express server is running. Okay, so we have created Express server. Let's run npm start. If you run npm start, you can see the Express server running on port 3080, and let's go to the browser and hit localhost 3080. Since it's a GET request, so we have defined the GET request there. So, and for the default path, we are sending API works. So, okay, that is how you set up PEAN stack project, where we are maintaining 2 folders, one for UI, one for API, and it has its own package.json files. And also, we are maintaining 2 terminals, and we are running these 2 separate folders in separate terminals. In that way, our development will be faster. And in the next episode, we will see more complex topics. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.